To escape a forced bonding, she grabs the first man she sees, not knowing he's the Alpha King. Every corner of the ancient castle seemed alive, shadows stretching and twisting as if whispering her name. Tonight, she could no longer wait. The council had chosen a man for her, one she had never met, one she was expected to love, to bind herself to with magic that would tie their souls forever. But she would not. She could not. The wind howled through the open windows as she ran, tugging at her cloak, chilling her skin. She knew the forest beyond the palace walls offered the only chance of escape. The silver light of the moon guided her steps as she sprinted down the cold, uneven path, overgrown with weeds and thorny bushes. Every instinct screamed at her to keep moving. Every sense told her danger was close. And yet, there was an unexplainable thrill in the flight, in the freedom she might grasp if only she could reach the dark edge of the woods. Her lungs burned and the branches tore at her cloak, scratching her arms and face. She did not care. The palace, with its heavy doors and cruel whispers, was behind her now. Here, in the forest, the air felt alive, filled with something ancient and strange, like the pulse of the world itself. She paused for a moment, leaning against a tree, trying to catch her breath, her chest heaving. That's when she saw him, a figure standing in the shadows. He was tall, broad-shouldered, cloaked in black. The moonlight caught the edge of his armor, making it gleam like silver. His eyes, sharp and cold, held a power that made her knees tremble. And yet, there was something else, something magnetic. She could not explain it. Without thinking, she seized him. Her hands gripped his shoulders and she pressed her face against his chest. "Help me," she gasped. "Please, I don't know where else to go." The man froze for a moment, his body rigid with surprise. Then slowly he placed his hands over hers, steadying her. His voice was low and commanding, yet not cruel. "You are reckless," he said. "Do you know what you've just done?" I don't care," she whispered. "I just need to escape." There was silence for a long moment, only the wind and the rustle of leaves surrounding them. Then he spoke again, his words carrying weight she could feel in her bones. "You have chosen to grab the first man you see, without knowing who he truly is." Alara looked up, meeting his gaze. His eyes were stormy, dark, almost black, yet flecked with gold that seemed to glow in the moonlight. She felt a shiver run down her spine, but she could not let go, not yet. "You don't understand," she said, her voice shaking. "They're going to—" He cut her off with a gesture, silencing her. "I understand more than you think. But I must know, are you running from danger or from yourself?" The words puzzled her, yet they touched something deep within her. She had been running all her life, from expectations, from obligations, from a destiny she did not choose. And now she was running again. But this time, she might not be able to run far enough. The forest grew darker as they moved deeper. He led her along a narrow path that twisted between towering trees. Their branches nodded like ancient hands reaching for the sky. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth and moss, and the soft hoot of an owl echoed through the silence. Every step felt dangerous, yet every step felt alive. "You are brave," he said finally, his voice softer now, almost thoughtful. "Few would dare to run from the palace alone. Fewer still would grab a stranger and trust him with their life." "I had no choice," she replied. I didn't know what else to do." He studied her for a long moment, the shadows of his face shifting like waves in the moonlight. "Perhaps that is true," he said, "or perhaps you have chosen your fate with your own hands." Alara did not answer. Her mind was too full of fear and confusion. All she knew was that the forest seemed to watch them, that the wind whispered warnings, and that the stranger beside her, this man she barely knew, felt like both a shield and a storm. They came to a small clearing, where the moonlight fell like silver dust upon the ground. Here he stopped, turning to face her fully. "You must rest," he said. "The night is not safe. Many creatures walk in shadows, and not all of them are kind." Alara shook her head. "I can't stop. If they catch me—" "They will not," he said, his voice firm yet calm. But if you collapse from exhaustion, you will not escape anyone. She hesitated, then allowed herself to sink to the ground. Her legs trembled and her breath came in ragged gasps. The man knelt beside her, not touching her but close enough that she felt his presence like a protective force. "My name is Kaelin," he said quietly, "and now you must tell me yours." "Ilara," she whispered. "Ilara," he repeated, as if tasting the name, weighing it in the darkness. "Do you know what you have done? You have taken a risk that could change the course of your life and mine." She looked at him, eyes wide. "I don't care about your life. I only care about mine." He smiled faintly, almost sadly. "That is the way of the world. We all begin thinking only of ourselves until the world reminds us otherwise." The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken questions. Who was he, really? Why did his presence feel both terrifying and comforting? And why, for the first time in her life, did she not want to leave him behind, even if she could? A sudden sound shattered the night, a branch snapping, loud and deliberate. Ilara's heart leapt. Kaelin's eyes sharpened, scanning the dark woods. "They are close," he said. "We must move." He helped her to her feet, his touch light but steady. She felt a spark of something she could not name, trust, fear, or something stronger course through her. Together they ran deeper into the forest, each step taking them farther from the palace, farther from the life she had been forced to accept. As they ran, the moonlight shifted, revealing strange markings on the trees, glowing faintly like runes. The forest seemed alive, bending and watching as if aware of her flight. Ilara stumbled and Kaelin caught her arm. His grip was firm, grounding her in the moment, and she felt a strange warmth in the darkness. "You must be careful," he said, his voice low. "This forest, it does not welcome the unprepared. You may think you are running from a palace, but some things are far older and far more dangerous." "What things?" she asked, fear and curiosity mingling in her voice. He hesitated. "Things that hunger for more than just flesh, things that hunger for soul and spirit. Tonight, you are in their world, Ilara, and they are watching." The weight of his words pressed down on her, heavier than the night air. She had thought escaping the palace was the hardest part. Now she realized that the forest itself, with its shadows and secrets, was a trial she might not survive. Still, she would not stop. She would not give up. Not yet. Not while her heart still beat in her chest, fierce and defiant. The night deepened and the wind carried whispers, ancient voices, almost melodic, almost calling. Kaelin moved ahead of her, guiding her, but always just out of reach, like a shadow she could not grasp. Ilara's mind raced. Who was this man? Why did he feel so dangerous, yet safe? Why did her heart betray her, fluttering in her chest whenever he spoke or looked her way? Suddenly, a flash of movement caught their attention. Figures emerged from the trees, guards, creatures. It was impossible to tell in the dark. Kaelin drew a curved dagger from his belt, his eyes fierce and unyielding. "Stay behind me," he commanded. "Whatever comes, do not run. You will not escape alone." Ilara's breath caught. She had never felt so afraid, so alive. Her life depended on this stranger, this man she had grabbed in desperation. And yet, she felt a thrill unlike anything she had ever known. The figures halted at the edge of the clearing, shadows stretching like smoke. Kaelin's voice was calm, controlled, yet there was an edge of steel in it. "You do not belong here. Leave or you will regret it." The forest seemed to hold its breath. The wind ceased. Even the moonlight flickered. Ilara clung to the edge of her cloak, heart hammering. Whatever came next, she knew there was no turning back. She had chosen her path, and somehow she felt that path had chosen Kaelin too. The first figure stepped forward, revealing the glint of a metal mask. Ilara's eyes widened. She had no idea what she had just entered, but she knew with every fiber of her being that nothing would ever be the same again. And Kaelin, standing tall and unflinching, whispered almost to himself, "Do you know what you've stolen, girl? Or who?" Ilara's hand tightened around her cloak. She swallowed, trying to steady her voice. I don't care," she said, though her heart betrayed her. pounding with fear, excitement, and something far more dangerous, anticipation. The forest seemed to close in around them, alive with power, shadows, and secrets. The chase had begun. The forest grew darker as they pressed forward, shadows deepening between the twisted trees. The strange figures that had appeared in the clearing vanished as suddenly as they came, leaving only the whisper of leaves and the distant cry of an owl. Alara's legs ached, but her heart raced with both fear and anticipation. Kaelin moved ahead of her with the grace of a predator, every step controlled, every motion precise. His presence was commanding, yet protective. Alara could feel it, an unspoken power in the way he held himself, in the way he moved through the darkness as though the shadows themselves bent to his will. "You must understand," he said quietly, not looking back. "The forest you have entered is ancient. It watches. It tests. And not everyone who runs from danger survives its trials." Alara swallowed hard. "I have survived so far," she said, though her voice wavered. I will survive." He glanced at her, the corner of his mouth lifting in a faint smile, almost imperceptible in the moonlight. "We shall see," he said. "Courage alone is not enough. One must have strength and wisdom and sometimes sacrifice." Alara shivered, feeling the weight of his words. She had never known sacrifice in her life, at least not willingly. Yet the very act of running had brought it closer, pressing her into choices she had never imagined. And now, standing beside a man she did not understand, she realized that her flight from the palace had only begun. After what felt like hours, the forest opened into a clearing where the ruins of an ancient temple lay half-hidden in the trees. Crumbling stone pillars reached toward the sky, etched with glowing symbols that seemed to pulse faintly in the darkness. The air was thick with magic, old and heavy, and Alara felt a strange pull in her chest, as though the temple itself was calling to her. Kaelin stopped at the edge of the clearing and turned to face her. "Here we rest," he said. "The night is far from over, and the forest will not grant mercy to those who move blindly." Alara sank to the ground, pressing her hands into the cold stone. Her body was exhausted, trembling with fatigue, yet her mind refused to rest. She could not stop thinking about Kaelin, about the way he moved, the sharpness in his gaze, the strange warmth she felt when he was near. It was terrifying, but it was also irresistible. "You are quiet," Kaelin said, his voice softening. "I can sense your thoughts even when you do not speak them." "I am just tired," she whispered, "and afraid." He knelt beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat of his presence, but careful not to touch. "Fear is natural," he said. "It sharpens the mind. It strengthens the spirit. But do not let it control you, Alara. Control is a dangerous thing, especially in a world where power can bend reality itself." Alara looked at him, truly looked for the first time. His eyes were stormy, dark, and endless, yet there was a flicker of something softer, almost hidden beneath the strength. She wanted to ask him who he really was, why he moved with such authority, why the forest seemed to yield to him. But the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she whispered, "I don't know how to survive this world, or this forest, or you." Kaelin's expression did not change, but his eyes lingered on her with an intensity that made her chest tighten. "You may not know now," he said, "but the choices you make will shape everything. Sometimes we run from destiny, only to find it has been waiting for us all along." The wind shifted, carrying the scent of something sweet and dangerous. Alara felt a shiver run down her spine. The forest was alive, alive with power older than any kingdom, older than any king. And somewhere in its shadows, she knew, forces were stirring, forces that would test her, challenge her, and perhaps even demand more of her than she was willing to give. Kaelin rose to his feet, his hand extended to her. "We must move again," he said. "The night is not yet safe and the forest grows restless." Alara took his hand, feeling the strength in his grip, the steady warmth that grounded her. She allowed him to pull her to her feet, and together they walked through the ruins of the temple. following a path only Kalen seemed to know. As they moved, he began to speak of the world beyond the forest, of kingdoms and rulers, of magic and curses, of power that could protect or destroy. His voice was steady, yet there was an edge of longing in his words, a hint of sorrow that she could not quite understand. "You are stronger than you believe," he said, "and yet strength is not enough. One must also know when to bend, when to yield, and when to stand unwavering. Do you understand?" Alara nodded slowly, though she did not fully understand. "I think I do." Kalen studied her for a long moment. "You are remarkable," he said finally. "Few can face the night with courage, few can face destiny without faltering. You may be more than even you know." Alara felt a flush rise to her cheeks, both from his words and from the closeness between them. She looked away, forcing herself to focus on the path ahead. Her mind was a storm of fear, admiration, and something deeper, something she dared not name. The path led them to a narrow canyon, the cliffs rising like jagged teeth on either side. The wind whipped through the canyon, carrying the scent of the sea and the taste of salt. Alara's steps faltered, fear creeping into her heart. "You must trust me," Kalen said, sensing her hesitation. "The way is dangerous, but I will not let harm come to you." She swallowed hard, gripping his hand tighter. "I trust you," she said, though her voice trembled. For a moment he said nothing, and she could feel the weight of his gaze on her, heavy and electric. Then, with a graceful motion, he led her along the narrow path, moving with a confidence that made her feel both safe and powerless at the same time. They reached the edge of the canyon where a waterfall tumbled into a hidden pool below. The moonlight reflected off the water, casting shimmering patterns across the rocks. Kalen knelt at the edge, motioning for her to sit beside him. "Alara," he said softly, "the night is almost over. Soon the sun will rise, and with it new dangers, new choices. But for now, rest. You have done well to survive this far." Alara sank beside him, her body trembling with exhaustion, yet her mind was alive with questions. Who was he truly? Why did he seem to know so much about the forest, about her, about everything? And why did her heart beat faster whenever he spoke? The silence stretched between them, filled with the sound of the waterfall and the rustling of leaves. For the first time, Alara allowed herself to breathe, to feel the strange comfort of his presence. Yet even in this moment of calm, she could sense the danger lurking just beyond the edge of the clearing, in the shadows that seemed to watch and wait. "Kalen," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the water, "why are you helping me? You don't even know me." He looked at her, his expression unreadable. "I know enough," he said, "enough to know that your fate is tied to mine, whether you wish it or not. And I cannot let harm come to you." Alara's heart tightened. There was a weight in his words, a promise, and something else, something unspoken, something that made her feel both terrified and drawn to him. Suddenly, a rustling sound came from the trees behind them. Alara's head snapped up and Kalen's hand went to the hilt of his dagger. The forest had not yet released its hold on them. Danger was still close, watching, waiting. "Stay behind me," Kalen commanded, his voice sharp, commanding. "No matter what comes, you must not run. You must trust me." Alara nodded, gripping the edge of the rock, her pulse racing. She did not understand what lay ahead, but she knew one thing with certainty: she could not face it alone, not anymore. And Kalen, standing tall and vigilant, seemed to radiate a power she had never seen before, a strength that made her feel both safe and small. She realized, with a shiver that was part fear, part excitement, that she was no longer just running from the palace. She was running toward something far larger, far more dangerous, and far more irresistible than she had ever imagined. The wind whispered through the canyon, carrying voices she could not understand, secrets she could not yet hear. The night stretched on, endless and alive, and the bond between them, fragile and unspoken, began to take root. Alara did not know what the dawn would bring. She did not know what dangers still awaited. But she knew one thing with certainty: Her life had changed forever. And in the presence of Kaelin, the Alpha King she did not yet fully understand, she felt both the thrill of freedom and the weight of a destiny she could not escape. The first light of dawn began to touch the edges of the forest, and with it, the first whispers of the trials to come. The first rays of sunlight filtered through the dense canopy of the forest, painting the world in pale gold and silver. Alara stirred from her uneasy sleep, the sound of the distant waterfall still echoing in her ears. The night had passed without attack, but the forest did not feel any safer. If anything, its shadows seemed deeper, its whispers more urgent. Kalen sat nearby, his eyes closed, but his body tense as if listening to the heartbeat of the woods itself. Even in sleep, he radiated authority, and Alara could not help but watch him, her heart torn between admiration, fear, and something she could not name. She wanted to speak, to ask him questions, but the words stuck in her throat. The moment stretched, filled only with the sounds of wind through leaves and the gentle gurgle of the waterfall. Alara finally broke the silence. "Kaelin," she said softly, "we cannot stay here forever. The palace, the people, they will come for me." He opened his eyes slowly, gold flecks catching the light. "They may come," he said, "but they do not know the forest as I do, nor do they understand the forces that dwell within it. Here, we are not just hunters and prey. We are players in something much larger." Alara's brow furrowed. "Players?" she asked, unsure of what he meant. He stood and extended his hand to her, the gesture both commanding and gentle. "Yes. The world you know, the palace, your family, the council, they are only pieces in a puzzle far older than you can imagine. And you have been chosen, though not by them, to face this puzzle." She took his hand, gripping it tightly, feeling the strength in his grasp. "Chosen. I didn't choose this," she whispered, though part of her already felt the truth in his words. "No," he said softly, "you did not. But choice is not always about what we want. Sometimes it is about what we must face and what we must survive." They moved along the forest path together, and for a while, silence stretched between them, comfortable yet charged. Alara's mind kept drifting to Kaelin, to the power in his presence, to the strange pull that seemed to draw her closer even when her instincts screamed caution. They arrived at a river that cut through the forest like liquid glass, its waters swift and cold. Kaelin approached the edge, scanning the far bank. "We must cross," he said. "The path ahead is treacherous and time is not on our side." Alara hesitated. "It's wide and fast." "I don't know if I can." "You can," he interrupted, his voice firm. "I will not let the river take you, trust me." She swallowed hard, feeling the weight of his words, and stepped forward. With Kaelin's steady guidance, they crossed the river, each step forcing her to trust him, to rely on him in ways she had never relied on anyone. And with each step, the bond between them deepened, silent and unspoken, but impossible to ignore. Once across, the forest changed. Trees grew taller, their bark darker, their leaves thicker, filtering out even more light. Shadows pooled in strange corners, and the air carried a faint hum, like the forest itself was alive and watching. "Alara," Kaelin said, breaking the silence, "you are not like the others. There is something within you, something old and powerful. I can feel it." She shook her head, fear rising in her chest. I don't know what you mean. I'm just me." He knelt to her level, his eyes intense. "No. You are far more than just you. There is a power in your blood, a gift that has lain dormant, waiting for the right moment to awaken. And tonight, it will awaken." Alara's pulse quickened. She had always felt different, though she had never understood why. Her thoughts, her instincts, they often moved faster than the world around her. But power, she could not imagine it. And yet, as she met Kaelin's gaze, she felt a strange truth stirring within her. Before she could ask more, the forest around them shifted. Shadows twisted unnaturally and the temperature dropped. The wind rose, carrying voices that seemed to echo from nowhere, whispering secrets she could not understand. "Stay close," Kaelin commanded, his voice low, tense. "The forest senses your awakening." It will test you, Alara. Do not falter. A figure emerged from the shadows, an ethereal shape, neither human nor beast. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and its presence sent a shiver down Alara's spine. The air thickened with power, and she realized with a sudden jolt that this was no ordinary threat. Kalen stepped in front of her, dagger drawn, his stance protective. "Do not move," he said, his voice calm but edged with steel. "This creature does not belong to the world you know, but you may be the one it seeks." Alara's heart pounded. It wants me." "Perhaps," Kalen said, his eyes never leaving the figure. "Or perhaps it wants to test you. Stand firm, Alara. Believe in yourself, and do not let fear control you." The figure moved closer, and Alara could feel a strange energy brushing against her skin, a pulse that resonated deep in her chest. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, and for the first time she tried to listen to the strange voice inside her, the one she had always ignored. A warmth spread through her body, starting in her chest and radiating outward. The shadows that had pressed in seemed to recoil, as if afraid of the light growing within her. Kalen watched, eyes wide, as Alara's power, long hidden, began to rise. With a final, deep breath, Alara opened her eyes. They glowed faintly with a golden light, reflecting the power she now understood was hers. The creature halted, its glowing eyes meeting hers, and then slowly it bowed its head before vanishing into the forest, leaving only silence behind. Kalen stepped forward, awe in his gaze. "Alara, you have done it. You have faced the forest and awakened your power. Few can do what you have just done." Alara's legs trembled, but her heart surged with something she had never felt before: pride, strength, and a strange sense of belonging. I did," she whispered, hardly believing it. "Yes," Kalen said, his voice low, almost reverent. "And now you must understand what this means. You are no longer merely fleeing the palace. You are part of something far greater, a force that can change the fate of kingdoms." Fear returned, mingling with excitement. "Change the fate of kingdoms," she echoed. I'm not ready for that." Kalen smiled faintly, the weight of his gaze both comforting and terrifying. "Few ever feel ready. That is the nature of power. It chooses its wielder and then it shapes them." They continued through the forest, the sun climbing higher, casting dappled light across the path. Alara's mind raced with questions, and Kalen, patient and silent, allowed her to walk beside him, letting her adjust to the new reality of her awakening power. Hours passed, and they reached a plateau overlooking a valley bathed in golden light. The landscape stretched endlessly, a mixture of forests, rivers, and distant mountains. Alara could feel the pulse of the land, the flow of magic threading through every tree, rock, and stream. Kalen knelt beside her, his expression unreadable. "This land," he said, "is ancient. It has known kings and queens, heroes and tyrants, curses and miracles, and now it knows you." Alara's breath caught. "Me?" "Yes," he said simply. "Your presence has awakened something here. Something that will test both of us and perhaps the entire world. You are no longer just a girl fleeing a palace. You are a force to be reckoned with." Her heart pounded, part fear, part excitement. She could not deny the truth in his words. She felt the power within her, raw and untamed, a flame waiting to ignite. And beside her, Kalen's steady presence reminded her that she was not alone. Yet even as she embraced the rising strength within her, doubt lingered. Could she control it? Could she survive what was coming? And what of Kalen, this alpha king who had drawn her into his world, who had shown her both danger and protection, power and desire? She glanced at him, his gaze fixed on the horizon, and felt a strange, longing twist inside her. There was a connection between them, unspoken but undeniable, a bond formed not of magic, but of trust, fear, and something far more dangerous: hope. Before she could speak, a distant roar echoed through the valley, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Birds took flight in panic, and the wind carried a scent of smoke and iron. Kalen's eyes darkened. "They know we are here," he said, his voice low, edged with steel. "And they are coming." Alara's heart raced. Who are they?" He did not answer immediately. Instead, he placed a hand on her shoulder, firm and grounding. "Enough for now," he said. "You must trust me. Whatever comes, we face it together." The wind swept across the plateau, carrying whispers of danger and destiny alike. Alara took a deep breath, feeling both fear and exhilaration. She had awakened her power, survived the forest's test, and now stood beside a king who was more than he seemed. The trials were only beginning. And as the shadows in the valley stirred, she realized with a shiver that nothing, not the palace, not the forest, not even Kalen himself, could prepare her for what was coming next. The valley below trembled with the rumble of approaching forces. Shadows twisted and swirled like living things, moving faster than the eye could follow. Alara stood beside Kalen, her chest tight, her hands clenched, yet her mind sharp. She had faced the forest, awakened her power, and survived tests she had never imagined. Now the final trial awaited, the one that would decide both their fates and the fate of the kingdoms beyond. Kalen's presence was steady, a pillar in the chaos. His eyes, dark and golden, scanned the horizon, calculating, anticipating. He turned to her, a rare softness in his gaze. "Alara," he said quietly, "this is the moment you have prepared for. You must trust yourself and you must trust me. Together, we are stronger than anything they can throw at us." Alara nodded, feeling the warmth of his hand briefly brush hers. The contact sent a shiver down her spine, a reminder that they were bound not just by circumstance, but by choice. She drew a deep breath, centering herself, and allowed the power within her to flow freely, a radiant pulse of energy that seemed to stretch across the valley. The shadowed figures approached, and their shapes became clearer. They were creatures of darkness, remnants of ancient curses and forgotten magic, each one carrying the weight of old grievances, the echoes of betrayal and hunger for control. Their eyes glowed like coals in the dim light, fixated on Alara and Kalen as if they had been waiting for this moment for centuries. Kalen drew a blade from his side, its metal catching the sunlight. "Stand behind me," he commanded. "No matter what comes, do not falter. Fear is a weapon they will try to use, but courage will be yours if you claim it." Alara braced herself, feeling the surge of her power within. She could sense the life around her, the river, the trees, even the wind itself, and she realized that this bond she had with the land and the forest made her more than just a girl fleeing a palace. She was a force of nature, a spark capable of challenging the darkness itself. The first wave of shadows reached them, and Kalen moved with precision and strength, deflecting, parrying, his blade a silver streak in the chaos. Alara raised her hands instinctively, and a golden light shot forward from her palms, pushing the shadows back. She felt the energy flow through her, and for the first time she embraced it fully. The creatures hesitated, sensing the power that had awakened within her. Kalen's eyes met hers, and for a fleeting moment the world held its breath. Their bond, unspoken but undeniable, was more than magic. It was trust, unity, and shared purpose. Together, they pushed the shadows back, step by step, until the valley seemed to hold only the echoes of their struggle. But even as the battle subsided, a larger force emerged, a swirling vortex of darkness, alive with fury and old magic. Its voice, ancient and echoing, filled the valley. "Child of the forest, king of men, you cannot escape what has been set in motion. Fate binds you, and power cannot deny destiny." Alara felt a tremor run through her. She had always feared destiny, the invisible chains of expectation and prophecy, and now, it seemed, destiny itself had come to claim them. Kalen stepped forward, placing himself between her and the darkness. "We do not bow to fate," he said, his voice strong, unwavering. "We choose our path, and we choose it together." The darkness recoiled, sensing his defiance. Alara's hands glowed brighter, her power harmonizing with the land, with the trees, with the wind and water. She understood then that this battle was not about defeating an enemy. It was about balance, about aligning their wills with the world itself. Together, she whispered, almost to herself, and Kaelin nodded, understanding immediately. The ground beneath them shook as they joined their strength. Kaelin's blade channeled her energy, and together they formed a radiant circle of light that pulsed and expanded outward, pushing the darkness back. Shadows screamed and writhed, but the light held, unwavering. In that moment, Alara realized something deeper. Her power was not just for survival, it was for transformation. She could heal the scars of the past, mend what was broken, and bring a new dawn to lands long shadowed by fear. And Kaelin, who had always carried the weight of a kingdom and centuries of expectation, could finally let go of the fear that had bound him, if only for this moment. The vortex of darkness faltered, then splintered into fragments that dissolved into the air, leaving the valley bathed in golden light. The wind stilled, the river flowed softly, and the forest seemed to exhale, releasing its tension. Alara sank to her knees, exhausted but alive in a way she had never been before. Kaelin knelt beside her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "You did it," he said, his voice quiet, yet filled with awe. "You have faced the darkness and emerged stronger. You have changed everything." Alara looked at him, her chest still heaving, and for the first time she felt no fear of the future. "We did it," she said softly, "together." His eyes softened, the weight of his kingly presence giving way to something more human, more tender. "Yes," he said, "together." They rose, and Kaelin extended his hand. Alara took it, feeling the warmth and strength in his grasp. In that simple gesture, she understood the truth. Bonds forged in trust, courage, and shared struggle were stronger than any magic, stronger than any curse. As they walked through the valley, the sunlight catching the edges of the trees, Alara felt a sense of freedom she had never known. The palace, the forced bonds, the council's expectations, they seemed distant now, shadows of a past she had outrun. Here in the world of forests and rivers, of ancient magic and kings, she was no longer a girl fleeing danger. She was a woman who had faced destiny and claimed it. Kaelin glanced at her, a small, almost imperceptible smile on his lips. "There will be challenges ahead," he said. "Other kingdoms, other threats, but tonight we have one more than a battle. We have begun something far greater." Alara felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mixture of relief, pride, and something far more tender. I feel like I belong," she whispered. "You do," Kaelin said, his voice low and steady. "And you will always have a place beside me if you choose it. Not as a subject, not as a pawn, but as a partner, equal in strength, in will, and in heart." Her breath caught. She had never expected to hear such words from a king, let alone a man as formidable as Kaelin. And yet she felt the truth of them in every beat of her heart. "Then I choose," she said softly, a smile breaking across her face. "I choose to stand with you." Kaelin's smile widened slightly, a rare lightness in his gaze. He extended his hand again, and this time she did not hesitate. Together, they stood at the edge of the valley, facing the horizon, knowing that the world would never be the same. The wind carried whispers of the past, of kings and queens, of battles fought and won, of curses broken and destinies reclaimed. And as the sun rose higher, bathing the valley in gold, Alara felt the pulse of life, magic, and power flowing through her. She had faced the darkness, awakened her strength, and chosen her own path. Kaelin stood beside her, and for the first time he allowed himself to feel not just the weight of a kingdom, but the light of hope, the thrill of trust, and the stirrings of love. Their hands touched, their eyes met, and in that moment nothing else mattered. The valley was calm now, but Alara knew the world beyond still held dangers. Kingdoms would rise and fall, curses would test the brave, and power would challenge the hearts of those who dared to wield it. But she was ready, and beside her, Kaelin was ready too. Together they had faced the darkness. Together they had claimed their power. Together they would face whatever the world had left to throw at them. And in the quiet of the valley, in the golden light of dawn, a new legend was born, not of kings and queens alone, but of courage, choice, and a bond that no curse, no shadow could ever break. Alara looked at Kalen, her heart full, her mind clear. "I am ready," she whispered. Kalen nodded, a promise in his eyes. "Then we begin," he said. And as the wind carried their resolve across the valley, the world seemed to shift, recognizing the bond they had forged, a bond of trust, courage, and love, stronger than any darkness, brighter than any shadow. The journey was far from over, but together they could face anything. And for the first time in her life, Alara smiled without fear, knowing she had found her place, not just in the world but beside the man who had become more than a stranger, more than a king, more than a protector. He was her partner, her equal, and perhaps her destiny.